I do what I love, you know, and you gotta curtail things. You gotta curtail the things you do on a day-to-day basis in the way you love doing them, and you gotta know what you love. So, you know, examples would be like, love waking up in the morning. I love pooping in the morning. Like, I love it so much, I gotta poop in the morning. Like, if I don't poop in the morning, it's off. Poop in the morning, whip up a podcast, start doing my shipments and whatnot. You gotta be able to sit there and know what you love and what you don't love, and you gotta fill your life with it. Honestly. And that's kind of what you start that, and then I could get that question into what you find meaning in. So that other question is, and the way I look at it is that there are things that you innately will have a fiery passion for. There are things that you may not even be able to describe, just like when you do them, you just feel like you love it. You can do it forever. That is that describable. It's an emotional response. It's definitely some chemical stuff going on. But I just know that when I do it, I could do it forever, and it'll never get old. It'll never get old. And I sit there and I'll imagine myself. A good example is that sometimes at night, I'll listen on a banger album, just walk around the room in a circle, just thinking about the album and like dancing. And no one's watching me do this, but I just do it because I love doing it. And that's really how you create meaning for yourself. It's like, if I explain to anybody, why do you do, like, anyone asks me, why do you do that? I'm not gonna be like, oh, it's because, like, I like to, like, walk around and shit and, like, just think about it. It's not really something I can explain. I just like to fucking do that. And that's how you find meaning. There are things that are inexplicably, you love to do it, you have passion for it, you just feel it within you. It's innate. It feels like you were made for this shit. And you just fill your life with it. You fill every minute with it.
How would you separate this love for doing something?
There's no rule book to this. I feel like there are some people who love to do self-destructive things, and they'll do it until they die. And, you know, life is life. For me, my logic is that I love doing these things so much that I want to live a long life so I can do them forever. So I weigh self-destructive stuff and not do them as much so I can live the long life. There was a time when I was 16 going through like an existential crisis that I was really just thinking about, what if I killed myself? I wasn't like suicidal, but I was just thinking like, what if I killed myself? And I thought about this for like a week. But then I just came to realize, if I killed myself, I can never listen to the Beatles again.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I fucking love the Beatles. I can never listen to the Beatles again if I kill myself? That's whack. I can't be doing that. So that was how I logicked myself out of it. But there are some people, and there's nothing you can really do about it, who will burn themselves. There are some people who will burn themselves until, you know, they're a corpse. And there's nothing they can do. I hope they do it with righteousness. They know they're doing this, and they feel like they're made to self-destruct, like go out like a burning star type stuff. Like, I don't want them to do it and they don't realize what they're doing. If they're going to do that, they know that they're going to do that. You know, it's like Andre, it's like a soldier. You know? Or a bodybuilder. Probably someone like Hemingway. I feel like this man would drink. I think he used depression to write. and he'd like to get in that mind space instead of, I don't know, seeking some help, like just sitting down, loving himself. I feel like there's a lot of people who like to get into dark spaces because they use that. It's like the Nietzschean thing. It's like the strife builds you, So there's people who love to get into a dark space because they know that they perform best in whatever they do in a dark space.
Mm.
I don't see myself doing that because I'm kind of a bloomer. Like, I like to, I think in a happy space I'm better, it's just like, but some people like Lou Reed. Okay. Lou Reed probably loves to relapse just to write another album. And he might not even realize he's doing that. That's why the Berlin trilogy for Bowie is so beautiful, because you can tell that he's essentially breaking through that. Because before Berlin, he was doing Stays in the Station. He was on coke, on a diet of coke and milk, seeing demons in his pool, and he was not going down the path that was sustainable. And even though he wrote a credible album, Stays in the Station, and he was writing Ziggy Stardust and all this shit, the Berlin trilogy is him saying, I gotta stop, I gotta go to Berlin, I need to recuperate myself. And then he writes, Heroes and Low, which is beautiful.
Mm.
And yeah. That's like that's the two sides of the coin. There are experiences in life that innately you need to experience. You need to fall in love. You need to climb a mountain. You need to take those risks. You need to do things that you can only feel fulfilled if you do those things.
Mm.
And that's one aspect. Another aspect is the idea that, life is like, people go down the nihilistic hole. It's like, oh, life is terrible. There's kids starving on the streets, and there's kids dying or whatever. And there's that, but there's also, there's beautiful things in life. There's beauty in tragedy. Mm. And it's, I guess this point is like, there's a mindset to it. Where, like, even if tragedy occurs, that's the way it is, and there's always beauty in tragedy. Like I was explaining the story of earlier with Bama. And Bama, just for a quick reiteration, Bama is a bruise room cook who died of cancer during bruise room and was homeless and lived behind a Winn-Dixie in the middle of the woods because he owed 6 kids 6 different child supports. And Bama would work even though he had cancer and he got almost burned to death by oil. But he'd work because every time his daughter would bring his grandkids, you instantly knew why Bama was working nonstop. This man was like 64. And there's beauty in that. There's beauty in those things. There's beauty in all sorts of tragedy. And that's life affirming. It's kind of like it's just painting things in the light. Because the only other option is to sit there and just doom and gloom life, right? Like, if we're being real, it's valid, as in, like, yeah, you can feel that way. There's fucked up shit. But is it optimal? Is it life? It's not life affirming. I think what we have to get into is why be life affirming, which is the idea that, like, if you're just doom and gloom, you're not gonna live your life to the full potential. You have a limited time here on Earth. Just accept that.
Mm.
And you don't know what happens afterwards. You don't know what happens before. You don't know what the fuck's going on. You just know that this is your life. You're a fucking human on planet Earth. So why not use it all for what it's got? Why not love your life? Why not love the things that happen? Why not affirm it as much as you can? You got, 77 years on average?
Mm.
You might as well fucking milk it for what it's got. instead of sitting there doom and gloom. In my opinion, you're just wasting time if you're sitting there doom and gloom. You can have some doom and gloom periods. Those build that builds character, but overall, you want to love the time you're here for. Because think about it, is if you were to die and you were to live your life again, you don't want the life that's depressed, doom and gloom, and that you gotta live through that shit all over again. You want the life that is beautiful, it's fulfilled, it's full of these incredible experiences, and that you would live that life 400 times over. I feel like any belief, you learn this from Nietzsche, because Nietzsche philosophizes with a hammer. Any belief should be individualized in anything. If someone tells you something, you don't just, yep, that's how it is. Like, you don't just take it in. You take any belief, any idea, and you rationalize it with your own unique brain into a way that is perfect for you. It works for your life. It works for your affirmation. And in a way, maybe even not. I was about to say in a way that's realistic, but like, maybe it doesn't have to be realistic. I just feel like don't let someone control you. Is really what I'm saying. Don't let someone control you. Be your own person. That's really it. Yeah, because like these, I don't know, this is what taught me how to not do that, essentially, and how I got out of it. Essentially went down the whole pole rabbit hole where they show you all these things. Oh, this is what Jews do, blah 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 blah, and they were trying to justify Hitler and justify all of the Holocaust and whatnot. And I got out of it by, I just realized some of the things they sent were lies. And they were complete lies. Like, I was reading other people and they were like, no, this shit is bullshit. And then I read more into it and I realized, oh, no, these are all bullshit. And then I just felt like this feeling of like, ugh, like I've been betrayed. You know what I mean? Like, I've been lied to. And that's where it was like, I'm going to absorb the information and do with it as I will, instead of being spoon-fed it, because I can't trust another motherfucker out here, essentially. And, because that's how you go down bad rabbit. That's how you let people control you. And you never want to be the guy that's controlled. Yeah. And then that's how, through that, I became libertarian. Because through that, from taking the information and the economics I learned, I realized libertarianism is the best idea for people. Warren Buffett is like the expansion of that idea that never let someone control you. Where he is just like, Warren Buffett does not listen to any analyzer on stocks. He doesn't listen to anyone, actually. In fact, when they ask him, who do you look up to? He just says, me. Alright? Because that's it. Because he knows he's so goddamn confident he's on top of the fucking world. He knows that no one is better than him at what he does. And I think that's baller. That's complete baller. Like, the only thing he needs is a no man, which is his buddy Charlie Munger. And that's who I look up to for that, because something about just being purely rational, looking up to no one, and just knowing that you know your shit is he's doing it right. He's built a $500 billion company. It's a process. You cannot lie to yourself. That's the big difference. You can't just ignore the facts. So if you're very confident about something and you're hitting all the marks and you're doing it right, you need to give yourself a reason to be confident. That's the difference between arrogance. It's basically your performance. I might take advice for that thing, but it's got to be from someone I trust. And then there's a whole thing about that where it's like, now you got to learn who to trust and you got to analyze other people. You got to ask questions. I want to see how you break down that. I want to see how you got to the conclusion. I want to see your method. I want to fact check your method. I want to see what resources you used. You got to ask a lot of questions, essentially. And it's great with people because people love being asked questions. Like, you love being asked questions. So you just ask a million questions. And I want to know the schematics of that person, essentially. Now, there's some people you can't ask questions to, but you can observe them. You know, like, for example, there's a guy named Li Lu, and Li Lu is basically the Chinese Warren Buffett. and I watch a bunch of lectures from him. And good thing he does lectures, so he does break down his methods because he's teaching college kids. So, but if Lilu broke down his methods and he came up with some whack bullshit where he, I don't know, gets 6 candles around and then puts the ticker symbol on a piece of paper, I wouldn't fucking trust Lilu. You know, but since Lilu breaks down his methods, and not only that, his methods align with other people that I've listened to, it all lines up, and I then trust that person. Also, their performance, too. Like, another big thing in stocks is you gotta trust the CEO. So what I'll do is I'll read all the annual reports, because the CEO writes them. I study the way they talk, and their interviews. If I don't fuck with the way they talk, I'm out, dog. I love the CEOs that explain everything. I want to know every single thing about this company. That's why I like the cheesecake one, because this man's been working there since it was founded in the 70s. So he explains every single aspect about putting a cheesecake on your fucking plate. And that's what I love. I want a guy who that's like a confidence thing too. I want to know that you know your shit. If I hear you in an interview and you're like stammering, like you're like you're like you know, when they ask you a question, you might shoot it off to someone else, or you don't explain it fully in detail. I can feel that you lack in your own confidence in your knowledge, and that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
This is something I deal with now, because the world fucking sucks right now. I always have hope of options. So, I am pretty, like, idealistic. I think it's mostly because I just want, like, the best life for me and for my people. So, there are times where I do fall in a bit of a depressive pit, because I look at the world around me, I'm like, oh, there's a fucking gas is $5, president sucks, the government's taking control of everything. And then I look and do research, and I'm like, what country could I escape to? Oh, that country's fucked, that country's fucked, that country's fucked, every single country is fucked in some way, shape, or form. But, I think you just gotta work really hard to craft the life you want. And I kind of dream about it. That's what kind of pulls me out of the depressive thing. I like dream about the life I want, and you work hard towards it. And, it's just like willpower. It's just like persistence and willpower, and just keep dreaming, keep achieving. I would tell you, first off, learn to love and learn to love, learn to have passion, learn how to identify love and passion. Then dream a life full of those things. And I don't even give a fuck what happens to you. Think about the other options. What, you're just not going to fulfill these dreams? You're just not going to do these things you want to do? Like, you're just going to sit there and cry about the world? No! Do the things you want to do. I don't care if you get fired, you become homeless. I don't care if lightning strikes you. You just got to learn how to, like, just keep dreaming the life you want, and literally, like, if you just set yourself on a path and you do those things, I swear to God, you'll feel great through it and the end of it. I'm hoping one of my themes of life is that I love freedom, and I love liberty. Obviously, I'm a libertarian. But even when I was a kid, my mom would ground me. She couldn't fucking ground me. I would find a way out of it. I was grounded for a year once because I was texting a girl online who my mom thought was a pedophile. She was not a pedophile, because what I did was I stole a phone from my brother. And it was like a phone with it was a Google Nexus 1. It was the first Nexus. And it was a phone with a fucked up battery. It couldn't charge, so it had a replaceable battery. You can swap in and out, and he got a battery charger to charge the battery. I stole both batteries and the battery charger and the phone. It was a fucked up phone. And I would text her anyways, and then I went on Skype, and she was not a pedophile. So my mom, he was whack for that one. But I get why she thought she was a pedophile. Anyways, I was grounded for a year, no PS3, no nothing. I would fucking steal the PS3 from her room. I would go into her closet at work, steal it, play Red Dead, And then knowing she comes to work at 5, at 4:30, put the PS3 back. Or I would sneak it back in there if she came earlier. Like, before I can do it, I would figure out a way to sneak the PS3 down and put it back in the closet. I would use the phone the whole time. She banned me from all electronics. So I would use the phone. I would sneak the PS3. I would do whatever. I'd skip school like 180 times. I had 180 class absences. Just no one could fucking control me. That was what I liked. So the life I envision is a life where now I'm fighting big. Like, I'm done with mom. I'm fighting the government. All right, now they can't fucking control me no more. All right, so now the government's my number one enemy. So my dream is to, I want to move to a country that doesn't fuck with me, that doesn't tax with me. I want to have a lot of money, some kind of remote job, investments. I want to be able to travel around the place. Oh, if I don't like this country, bye-bye. Go to another country. And I want to, yeah, I mean, I honestly just want to fuck the American government, too, because that feels good. My big goal is to expatriate and drop out my American citizenship and get a citizenship to a country that is tight, like Colombia or Panama or on one of the Caribbean islands or some shit. But, yeah, that's the life I'm envisioning myself right now.
That's good. That's wrong.
Okay. So, from myself growing up in a Christian home, for a big majority of people listening to this will either have experience with that or know somebody with that. That idea of where evil comes from is rooted in the absence of God. So, where something is falling apart in someone's life or where someone is making the wrong decision, it's not because they are evil, but because it's the absence of God. And that whole proper noun of devil or Satan being the incarnation thereof, it's just that absence of God. And all we can base off of that personification of evil with being Lucifer and his angels is from Isaiah, the 50s chapters and 40s, I think. And that's kind of how the Christian Western idea is based in. That's what I'm certain of.
Yeah.
So, what would anybody else?
I mean, my answer will probably be, I'm pretty sure it exists, but there's no way of knowing for sure what it is until you have that omniscience that you gain after death.
My answer is that you may have these irklings and feelings within you, but ultimately there is no evil. 'Cause you're fallible, and so is everybody else.
You know, I think one time we had this discussion about what the original sin was. You know, my thought process was, it wasn't them eating the apple that was the first sin. It was them lying to God's face after they had the knowledge of what was good and evil. So before that point, them eating the apple wasn't really on them, because they didn't know what was good and evil. But then when they took the bite of that fruit and then they lied, that was the actual first sin. And this thought process I was having today was you know, what if in some weird cryptic fashion before we're all born, each of us has our trial in the Garden of Eden. And those of us that are incarnated on earth are the ones that failed and took that bite, and now we are cursed.
Well, that's what's the point of Genesis. It's about man gaining consciousness, therefore they can now sin.
Right.
So,
and not even more so the ability to recognize it, because once they did bite the fruit, they recognized their nakedness. They recognized their nakedness, not physically but spiritually and morally, that they now realize that they themselves can be dishonest. They themselves can choose right and wrong, and it's because they saw it in themselves that they now see it in everyone else. I know that the same propensity to cause damage, to cause destruction that's in me is in everyone else, and now I recognize that the decisions that I make affect others the same way they affect me, and I want them to be either good or bad. And that's...
Why do you want them to be good or bad?
Because if I want to have a good life, and I mean, what was it called? No, I can't remember the movie. If I want,
It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah,
Is that the one where he wants to kill himself, and then the angel like shows him his life?
Comes back, and he says, and the end of the movie
Saturday Night
is
Before Christmas.
exactly. And the end of the movie is showing the value in investing in other people, because the more positive you exude, the more positive you retract.
So also like
This guy's got the master morality.
the
Disney.
The master morality.
Yeah.
You see what is bad for you as evil,
Mm-hmm.
and what is good for you as good.
Mm-hmm.
But for you.
But for me,
But for you.
so it's up to you.
Yeah. It's,
But then there's this is completely without trying to recognize any morality or higher religion. It's then becoming, the word is, what's that word? To do something only for yourself.
self-centered, egocentric.
Egocentric, thank you. Where I'm only focused on myself, so I'm going to do something for others, not starts with an A, when you're doing something completely selfless.
Crap.
altruism?
Altruistically. It's not altruistic, it's still self-centered in an altruistic manner.
Yeah, it's like if I am an employer and I'm investing in my employee, I'm doing it so that guy can make me more money.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like that. You
So-
you want to do it just for the sake of good,
Yeah.
like just for
Mhm.
them.
Like, why do people donate to charity?
But in a way that's still
It's still not good.
still selfish,
It's
because
still
you like feeling good
Mm-hmm.
from doing that. You like fulfilling yourself by doing that. So even if you are doing it to yourself, doing it in a way that you feel like is wholehearted, you're still doing it for you in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe like the best altruism is where the thing that you were giving away is worth more in value than the good that you feel by doing it. Like, you know,
I don't think we need to worry about, like, I don't think you should worry if you are inherently benefiting yourself. It's okay to.
because I guess if you go through that, then you might just wind up being selfish and, you know, not helping anyone.
Yeah, you
So
should, of
it's like-
course, check yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, you know, doesn't really matter if you do it in a weirdly selfish way, in a roundabout selfish way. You know, at least some net good is coming out of
You
it.
gotta wonder, like, why do you really do these things? Right? And get to the root of it. And that is the reason. Right? You also want to watch yourself, because there's you can't be too selfless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people, you know, it's like almost like an addiction.
Do you think Mother Teresa lived a good life?
No, she glorified suffering.
Yeah, she suffered, bro. She starved as much as all the other kids she was with.
Not even just
and
that.
just busted her ass.
I mean,
nonstop.
like in like her houses itself, it wasn't like, oh, she was like caring for them. It's more just like, oh, okay, you know, these people are dying. I'm not gonna help them too much, but we're just gonna have them in this roof, and please give me $10 million. You know,
I'm Mother Teresa.
you know, like you know, she wasn't like using that money to necessarily give them like life-saving care. It was just like, okay, this is a good place for you to die. I have
So-
heart problems. I'm gonna fly to the U.S. to get an expensive operation.
Yeah.
My economics teacher used that example exactly to show that altruism doesn't exist. And it was a religious institution, so he added, altruism does not exist with the exception of Jesus' sacrifice of himself. So
Yeah, that's the one argument.
That's where that argument still stays open
That's
for
the
me.
Kierkegaard
I feel like
thing.
we
Yeah.
keep looking at it from like Western religion, but I also don't know enough about Eastern religions and you know
Yeah, we're
what their
three white-
nature
we're
of
three-
evil.
4 white dudes in a. I think culture is the representative of individuals carrying these memes over time that they've given meaning to,
Yeah,
and it's just like the culture is just the picture that you're seeing
Yeah.
at any given moment. And I do think it's I do think it can give meaning, but like from an individualistic sense too.
you could see
In
like,
fact, in individualistic sense, you contribute to it.
you know, it's weird when you look at labels of like first and third world, because like, you know, sometimes you see like these people that are so much happier than we are. It's like, how can we say we're more developed just because we have more consumer goods? It's
Yeah.
like people in certain societies that we live in have tried quantifying happiness when it's something that can't really be quantified, and therefore it leaves a lot of people feeling empty and disillusioned. How do you say that word?
Disillusioned?
Yeah, disillusioned.
A great example is Japan. Like, they have top 3 economy in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a incredibly great standard of living and all this healthcare, and they live until like they're in their 80s, and they have one of the highest suicide rates.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
South Korea has a lot of suicide rates too.
Yeah. Oh, because they're fucking culturally bankrupt, honestly. I think consumerism and production and certain things in capitalism just fucking ruin their lives because all they do is work. All they do is care about money.
Yeah.
And they don't really look past it. It's too materialistic. They don't create culture and live in culture, which is important. It's creating meaning. Otherwise, you just live in a world of fucking numbers and goddamn quotas and shit.
But at the same time, I feel like that view also somewhat fetishizes brokenness. It's like, oh, look at these people. They really have it happy.
Yeah, there's a balance to it. Like, obviously, it's like being like, oh, the people with Shameless, they must have a fucking great life. Like, obviously, they don't have a great life, even though they're poor.
Their life a movie, though.
Their life a movie, though. But
Well,
there's a balance to it. Like, you just create the means that you want, but don't fall ill to.
It's like
for example, Japan has such an intense competitive culture that you have to also be an intense competitive culture. Like, have an intense competitiveness within you and work like insane amount of hours. In America, we have an intense consumerist culture. So you gotta buy all this shit, buy a new car, whatever. People, it like brainwashes people. It takes root of them. You can't let yourself fall ill to that. You have to just do what you want. If you want to be rich and have a bunch of shit, go ahead and do it. If you don't care and you just want to live comfy, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we fall ill to.
But then since we have such a consumer thing, the choice to be able to just be comfortable and like embrace things you love it feels like it's gone. Like that dream is gone of being able to have like a nice place, with your family. You meet up with your family. That's gone. People are moving across states for jobs because living standards are cheaper.
in Tennessee, yeah.
But when you have these cheaper areas, then people start moving. They're saying, "Oh, this is a cheap area." It gets expensive.
Yeah.
It's like eventually we're just gonna wind up in a hellscape where all you can afford to do is just work.
The word comfort that you guys used, I found interesting. I was reading from a book about etymology on the word comfort. It was really interesting how the word wasn't used to describe items and products until the 21st century. Prior to that, it only was used to reference a state of life or members of a family being, not consumerism.
So you wouldn't say, "Oh, this pillow's comfy."
Right. It would just be, I'm comfortable in my home. I'm in a comfortable family. I'm in a comfortable home. It's a term of existence, and it's kind of being used as a red laser pointer for us to chase with something that we want to buy, and not for productivity means, but for a means of comfort.
It's a bastardization of the original thing, because the reason why it works so well is because it brings you to that old definition.
You want to be comfortable. You want to be.
Yeah.
You don't.
If I buy this thing, it will make me into a state of comfort.
That's kind of what politics is in the U.S. in certain aspects. You have like the Republican Party that basically commodified an older standard of living that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And
both parties. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say that both parties are the ones that are responsible for destroying that.
Yeah.
But what's the solution?
What's the solution?
I think, well, it's the idea of, if you don't take an interest in politics, politics will take an interest in you. You can't make that decision now. You have to avoid the decisions that are being presented to you and not focus on the comfort that you can get from what you buy, but the productivity and the means of living that come from it. When, like in Japan, I was able to go to a third world country in 2017 and saw people who had absolutely nothing but knew what they needed to be happy in their standard. And I was helping paint a house, and used the painter's tape to wad it up, make a little soccer ball, and we played soccer for the whole night. That's happiness. That costs nothing. The people there with their homes, who would wash clothes by hand with their parents, who would eat food with their families. Not that type. It was Haiti. It wasn't that type of third world country. They would eat food with their families and not like be on their phones. Everybody's sitting around a different part of a house. Someone's watching Netflix because they want to be more comfortable personally, but recognize the external necessity of living.
I had no idea you went to Haiti.
That was 2017.
Yeah.
But It was fun.
The problem with society is that people just let these things take control of them.
It's easy. Like, if you just don't care, it just happens.
It just happens.
I gotta keep it creamy. It has control over me. I think all of us, to a certain extent, enjoys consuming things. I mean,
Yeah,
we're
but
all consumers of media.
How many times do you click on an ad and buy it?
Oh, almost never.
Almost never.
The only times I've actually like had an ad where I decide to go buy something is if it's like, say, a YouTuber I really like advertises it, and I think, okay, that's interesting. I'm gonna buy it and support them and use their code.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is that by you not clicking on ads, you aren't letting them control you.
Mm-hmm.
But there are still like precognitions that you're talking about.
Yeah.
That are like, okay, well, you gotta balance yourself. Would you buy stuff? Like, what is your ideal thing? Like, do you want to live
Like,
like
my ideal comfortable life?
like on what spectrum? Like, would you live like the Haitians, or do you want to be rich and famous?
I want to, like, I gotta keep it creamy. I'd rather, it's like, you know, what was it in Wolf of Wall Street where he was like, you know, he was talking about how people talk about, like, you know, poor people have true happiness, and he's like, you know, absolutely fucking not.
Absolutely fucking not.
Yeah, you know, and he's talking about money can buy you happiness.
Yeah.
To a certain extent it can, but then it's like eventually you use that money to like try to chase after something that is harder to buy. Like, it's like, you know, with like drugs, you know, you get a certain tolerance to it. Like, say if I was like broke all my life and I won like $2 million, I would probably be the happiest person, one of the happiest people in the world in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But then eventually it's like the pleasure from buying things that you've wanted starts to wear out, and then it just becomes a chore.
And
Yeah. Then you just have money.
Yeah.
does that then,
They have money.
But what I'm asking you is, because you didn't answer the question, like, would you on that spectrum, where would you want to be?
I think most people want to be somewhere in the middle, where, you know, they still have contact with their culture, their family, people they care about. They still have good times, you know, just doing things that don't necessarily require money.
Mm-hmm.
But I still want to be able. I still want to not live in third world conditions because I'm used to AC, hot water.
Not only that, but you want to buy a nice computer and play games. And
Yeah,
drive
exactly.
A decent car and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
not lose touch with that social aspect of people not wanting to, like we were saying before, invest in you for their own personal gain.
Yeah. What I'm just saying is, like, is this something that you've thought of, like, legitimately, truly want, or is this something that's been construed from all these crap that you're showing on TV all the time over your time?
I think about this whenever I go to Costa Rica. It's like, you know, they seem so happy being able to just hang out with each other, but I don't know if I would want to trade the life I have for what they have. Like, say, like my cousin Armando, he's like, you know, 50.
Mm-hmm.
I think he makes like marginally more money than I do. Like that, I make like say 15 a year.
Yeah.
Granted, I live at home, so it's not really that big of a deal. It's mostly disposable income. And he makes like say 25.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought. Oh, I think the main point I was going to say was, you know, I always think about this, like, you know, would I really be happy here, or am I just too used to consuming things?
Well, do you crave what he has?
No. There's some things I do crave, like I wish I was near my family, and like had, because I pretty much see them once every 2 years. It's a weird feeling, like thinking like, oh, these people I've been in their lives probably about a total of 8 weeks in my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing that's interesting is they still have love for me, and I still have love for them. Well, if you think about it, they barely know me. It's like the memes where it's like, oh, you know, I just had my kid, I love him already. Like, you know, okay, Dick Ryder, you known him like a week. You know, like, you know.
They love you by association, and they do love you for you.
Yeah.
What they've seen of you.
And you can branch that out to just everybody in existence today, because we're all to a certain nth degree relatives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is where you can find value in the external relationships that you have then internal peace with.
Yeah.
It's just broadening your, taking down a little bit of pride and saying, well, sure, I don't know who they are, but they're nothing different than I am, and anybody can be just as close to you as your own mother. You know, there's people with broken homes that make someone else their entire family, and it feels just as tight, if not tighter, than your own family.
Yeah, you could choose your family.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Team Venture proves that.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like it's easier to stick with family though, just because like you know that it's your family, but for all we know, you could not even be related to them.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Like, it's like all of a sudden someone told me, "Oh, by the way, you're not related to us at all. You literally just showed up at our house. Like we found you on the doorstep."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that actually.
But I'd still have that familial connection.
Mm-hmm. There was a person in my family, not to get too specific, but found out halfway through their, you leave the house around like 24 or so. Halfway through their childhood, found out their dad wasn't their dad, and their mom was having an affair with someone else, and it just ruined their whole aspect of family, and now has horrible trust issues. But it's just that superimposed knowledge of, I came from you, therefore you are my family member.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than saying, you have the exact same means of genetic makeup to produce the brain that thinks the same way I do, to produce the life and motives that I do, to have the same recognition of good and evil that I do. Why not just stop being concerned with how separate we are from them and move to that peaceful. I feel like I'm trying to start a treaty that doesn't need to be made, but like we're going through life thinking that we're all strangers, and that we're more alike than we are different.
Yeah.
that's a sad thing about like modern society is that like no neighbors talk to each other anymore. And
Yeah. No.
When you moved in, you used to bake everyone a casserole, have them all over.
Yeah. You used to know your neighbor. You used to talk to people on the street, talk to people at a bar. Now it's like we're all secluded.
I think finding an objective belief to live life by produces agnosticism, but to then look for faith itself produces somebody finding their faith. That, if I was born 99 in Florida, very Western culture, everybody around here was either Christian or Catholic. And if I was born in, or none of the above, if I was born in Nairobi, I would be at the helm of my ancestors and their religious beliefs. If I was born in the Middle East, I would be looking in the Quran. I would be looking at how it relates to the Western cultures and their religions. So it's just where you start. You eventually learn enough to understand, because you have to be able to reason from something, you have to have the knowledge to then reason through it. So to acquire the knowledge is where the problem is. We can't know everything. And that then incites the necessity of faith. If I was to live my life in a way of knowing everything, then it's not so much a journey than it is being. Mm-hmm. And I'm living. So I'm born with a preconceived notion that I can make my own decision, and I am at fault or at peace with whatever decision I make. There's a consequence. There has to be. Or you can choose that decision of neutrality and agnosticism and say that I'm just going to be. It doesn't matter. So if I make the decision to... some people would have the aggressive standpoint and say a man who dies without faith had no courage to search himself and outside of himself to see where he could find peace with his decisions and his morality and his eternity. But I really think that it's finding the reason for something that we can't explain. All that comes in life. It's I have the ability to decide. I have the ability to affect someone's life. Even if I die, my decisions still affect me. If I'm a horrible father to my kid and I die, my decisions are still affecting that kid. They could still have trust issues because I did X, Y, Z. So if I want to live that life, I have to have a belief in my choices having consequences. And what does that mean if I believe that there's something different between me and an animal, that I have some type of spirit, that I have some reason for being here? Because if I just live without a reason, then so be it. And you have that scientific explanation that says I'm fine with not believing that we have an eternity, because I'll just die and go back to where I came from, dirt.
Yeah. So I got a question. So say, it's like a hypothetical, what do they call them? Think questions, thought experiments.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, say somehow there's some way to prove. Let's just say without a doubt, there's no higher power. All these sources of morality throughout ancient times are complete BS. What sources of morality do you think people would cling to instead? If, like, say, everyone knew 100%, there's no God, there's no, creatures or whatever the fuck, animist.
Most people would follow the Kantian thing of, like, you basically do what to others what you would want done to yourself.
Who's Kant?
Jefferson, right?
No, Kant.
That's his name?
Yeah.
Just one name.
The German philosopher. I forgot his first
Immanuel.
name. Immanuel Kant. There you go.
Yeah, probably. Because I think there still would be some sort of moral standards even without it.
I mean, but without what? Without God? Yeah. Because people want a society, essentially. But is that really a moral standard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean.
Anyways, what I wanted to ask Josh is, why do you call all that stuff you talked about faith?
Faith is all that stuff that I talked about.
Because I feel like you talked about all this stuff. I feel like I can just replace the word of faith with meaning.
Replace the word of faith with meaning. So, I don't... Okay, so with something like studying history, when you... trying to find the direction that would lead to finding the synonymous relation between faith and meaning. Because what man is searching for is subjective and above ourselves, we then have to have the belief that provides that substance to life. If I don't believe it, then it doesn't serve the purpose that it has of meaning, of existence, of purpose. So and that's why it has to be viewed as intrinsic and a belief. If I make something up and am always criticizing it, it then just becomes a cyclic self-actionization and reasoning. Is that leading in the direction that you were wondering?
Oh, yeah. My thing was like, I feel like we're very similar.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering why you were using the word faith.
Well, what's the difference between faith and meaning? Because I'm coming from, even in a scientific standpoint, for somebody to say that this fossil came from 44 billion years ago, we can only base that off of some carbon dating that we can assume has existed at the same rate for so long, and we can assume the location and the deterioration, but there has to be a faith in that, or a faith in the beginning of the universe.
It's like a trust that you
Well,
can't confirm, but I have a
real.
feeling it.
Yes, an inconfirmable trust.
So, part of the beauty of religion is the fact that there's a chance you could be wrong, but you're choosing to trust that it's right.
I would say yes, but that wouldn't hold up if I gave that argument in, say, my church, where people have that, they call it a blessed assurance, that song, and that without a shadow of a doubt that this is my belief that Jesus Christ died for me, and my salvation from hell is in him, and there's verses in the Bible written to clarify the surety in that belief met by certain standards. You believe, you recognize you're a sinner, you've repented as your sins, you recognize Jesus as the propensity for that sin, and the realization of your nature and the inability to follow the commandments, which are that preconceived notion of laws that were given to us back then, still by God, that I can't follow those, so I need him as my savior. And so that little package for them, for us as Christians, is surety. And without that surety, that kind of just falls apart, because then you're just believing something that is possibly true, and that isn't how.
Do you think that you don't need this? That you can just for me, I don't even care if it's real or not. It's as real as it ever will look to me. I'll take it as it is. And I don't need to have a faith in it, honestly. It's just like, I don't know what else it could be, so I'm gonna just let it, what I see is what it is. So to me, I don't see like I need the faith to believe in things. I just believe in my own mind, really.
With the recognition,
even if all this shit was bullshit, this was, you know, the what is it, the Descartes thing where it's all a fucking demon. I live it up. I wouldn't care. I live it up. I don't need to know if it's real or not. It's what I'm seeing. It's what I'm living. I'll live it up.
Right.
I kind of get that thought process sometimes, because I'm thinking like, there's like so much shit. How the fuck is this all real? Like, how is this real? Like, just the fact that there's a Beatles poster, and there's music, and there's art, and there's video games.
Yeah.
Like, how the fuck is that real? Like, someone built a road.
Or
like,
dudes with all these consciousnesses.
Like, like
speaking in tongues and
it's
shit.
It's like, we really in this bitch. Like,
yeah.
So I'm just kind of like, fuck it, we ball. What else are you gonna do?
What else are you gonna do?
Like, what else are you gonna do?
End credits.
I wonder if anyone ever truly actually has 100% belief in the fact that something will happen. I feel like almost everyone has that little voice in the back of their head that has doubt. One thing I was thinking of is, did you go to CCD? I forget if you're Catholic or Protestant. No. I was talking to him.
Okay. Are you looking at
Were you raised Catholic, or was it some other
Christian?
Oh, so you're Protestant. Okay, so at CCD, that like child explanation they kind of give for good and evil is like, if your conscience tells you if it's good or evil. But there are people out there without a conscience.
They're psychos.
So it's like it's literally like it's just not a good explanation, because there are things that we do that we only feel bad doing because, say, the church told us it was a sin. For example, beating the chicken, whatever the slang term is. Like, who is that hurting? But, I think the origin of the thing is because in ancient times they thought that, semen, that was the whole fucking baby. It just needed to grow in an oven, aka the uterus. So every time you were busting a nut, they thought you were shooting a whole fucking baby out.
You're genociding, yeah. Or I think the modern interpretation is like you're hurting yourself by doing that.
But how?
I don't know. You're hurting yourself.
I mean, some people
you're doing something depraving, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Some people get have porn addictions, have addictions to do that, but I don't. So how is that? That's literally a mortal sin. If I don't get my sin, if I don't get that sin forgiven, there's no chance of me entering the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
Is it really that bad?
And that, I think, is the division between, when you said CCB, I haven't heard that abbreviation before.
I don't remember what it stands for.
Okay. Between Catholics and Christians, it could be drawn back to Martin Luther in the Reformation, when there's now a delineation between my depravity and God's fullness of salvation from my constant sin and fallenness, brokenness, and me constantly having to repent. That was brought on in addition by Catholic tradition, that I might not have to go to priests and constantly reiterate my sins and then to ask for forgiveness, but to know that I'm forgiven and to know that my salvation is sure, and to constantly work on myself and have honest repentance, because my church would tell me that if you're not, and the Bible would tell me, if you're saved but living the same life that you did before you recognized Christ as your Savior, then you're not truly saved.
So it's the change, not necessarily, you're not going to be full on monk mode, Christ-like, but if you're different from one before you were exposed to that, then you're on the path to salvation. And
exactly like Nick was saying, if you're not fully believing it, then it's just another option. So that's why they're you're either it or you're not. You either fully accept or you haven't done it yet.
I like looking at
I'm saying, is it possible to become Christian-like without ever knowing about God?
I think so. I think there's some monk fucking dudes that are
you lived in a forest and you came out and you just believe the same things that God did. You never even heard of God or Jesus or anything.
Statistically, I'm sure it's possible.
No, it definitely is.
Yeah, because like I'm sure there's like some dudes that live in a fucking mountain, and then they're like, all right, this is what you gotta do to like achieve enlightenment, and it's just it's literally just the Gospels.
It's the Gospels.
Not
but the
exact
man's never
words,
heard
but the
of
meaning.
Gospels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to the Congo, you'll find tribes that have
What do you
never.
What do you think is, which way do you think is better for the soul? Which journey?
The
like,
journey of
let's
the
say-
indigenous.
Let's say, let's just say some dude lived in the forest and he came out Christ-like without knowledge of Christ, or someone who was raised in the church and becomes Christ-like through the church.
Well, that's like in Dante's Inferno. Those types of people that just happen to go along God's standards of morals, even without knowing of Christ, they go to the pale imitation of heaven. I definitely think there are. You know, you can look at it from like a religious standpoint. If you look at predestination, some people are just destined to be damned. That's just their fate. That's just how it is. But you can also look at it in a biological sense. Something in the brain is so fucked that the only emotions they do have is negative ill will towards others.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, you don't notice it when they're a baby because, like, what the fuck is a baby gonna do? Like,
Yeah.
But then, like, once they start growing, you start seeing like these weird things. And
There's
people like learn how to act normal,
There's-
but they aren't normal.
Yeah, there's also people with a lack of control, so they act out on these inner hatreds.
Because everyone has like these thoughts that they kind of just discard. Intrusive thoughts.
Staring into the abyss.
Yeah, but like it's like some people lack the ability to not do that. Like you might have an intrusive thought. What if I just like killed this child?
Yeah.
There are people without the actual upper part of your brain that tells you, no,
Don't do that.
like don't do that.
Yeah.
You feel bad.
Yeah, it's like a Mice of Men, where he accidentally kills people. He just doesn't even realize it. He just does it.
He only accidentally killed like one person, I think.
He accidentally assaulted someone before,
Yeah.
and then he killed the lady at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, rest in peace. What was that guy's name?
What up?
I mean, I don't know. Like, it's hard to recognize because, like, sometimes when you look at people, there could be a person that actually has, like, no empathy. And because I have empathy, I, like, think that they do, too. So I'm thinking, oh, they didn't do that out of pure evil. And for all we know, they could have.
It's true. Like, to really get evil,
It's hard to, like, tell if someone doesn't have a fucking consciousness.
It's pure. You gotta see it. Is it purely just fucking malicious?
'Cause, like,
in a way, we do more evil shit. Andreas does evil shit, but it's not like he's not killing babies or something. But he will do something, or I will do something, just because it's wicked.
Yeah, like, it's like, like we
Just
we
for
go
the shits
crazy.
and giggles.
Like, we're going evil mode right
we
now.
go evil mode.
Like, literally, like, a recurring thing that we say in the chat is, I'm evil.
Yeah.
Like, we're literally just...
And we will romanticize it. It's just like
wouldn't it be nice?
Like, sometimes we'll just be shitting on people for, like, no reason.
yeah, like what I said to the car dealership.
Yeah, like, there's no reason.
No reason. I just wanted to fuck with folks.
Or the Pokemon card thing.
The Pokemon.
When he called that lowball thing disrespectful. You could just ended the whole conversation and not responded.
Oh, so sorry, or just like didn't respond.
Yeah, but no, you sent in the same effort again.
Fuck you.
Like.
Which is what goes back into what you said. Like, really, the most evil person you know is you, because you're the only one who knows yourself
Yeah,
the
like,
most.
Like, I know when I did something
Like,
out of spite, or
let's say I gave you $1 billion. Do you think you would be a good person with that money?
I don't know.
You don't
Because
know.
there's no way to know until you have that sort of power. It's like, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
This is something that scares me.
Because it's like, I'm thinking,
Because-
I want these people with billions of dollars to, like, actually contribute much more than they do. Like, why don't you just, like, spend $1 billion and, like, fix all the fucking roads in the city? We have so many people in Plantation Acres. They just pull together money and, like, literally, like, just build a bunch of, like, cheap houses. But they don't. And I'm thinking, would I necessarily do that? Sure, I'd donate money, but, me giving money to some guy in the street, it's probably a bigger proportion of my wealth that I would donate than if I had $1 billion.
Yeah, I think it's
Really. It's because it's like people have this fear of losing things that they have. So I would be doing things to try to make sure I still have that $1 billion to get more.
Mhm.
I'd be like investing. I'd be buying stuff and selling stuff. But,
This is a question I think everyone should ask themselves, because there are times when I do something in business, and I'm like, man, if I had $1 billion, I'd be kind of fucked up. I'd be doing some things that are wrong.
High markups, stuff like that. Like,
You know what I do when people sell things for too cheap on eBay? I buy out their entire stock, and then I just sell it higher.
One thing I think about a lot to myself, because I don't play the lottery. I don't play the lottery. I'm constantly thinking about, man, if I just won though. And I'm thinking, what's the highest amount of money I would win and not feel bad about giving a ton of it to charity?
Yeah.
Like for me, I think my area where I think I could be very comfortable for the rest of my life and not feel too bad about giving money away, probably about $100 million. I wouldn't feel too bad about
So if you had $1 billion, would you donate 900 million?
No.
No.
That's what I'm saying. It's like that's the point where I'd become corrupted in a way.
Yeah.
Because I want to preserve that $1 billion.
Because you look at your bank account and you see
that's
the
a
digits
fucking
and you're like, I'm gonna lose some digits.
Like going from
Because you can even ask this question yourself right now. Let's say I don't know how much you have. Let's say you have $10,000.
I have $100 in my bank account right now.
Okay, fine. You have $100 in your bank account. Could you live with $90?
I mean, I'm assuming later on we're gonna eat something, so I'm gonna be at $90 soon. But you're saying would I be comfortable just giving away 10 of it?
Yes. Would you donate 10 of it?
I've noticed the times I've been most generous is when I get some sort of windfall. Like say, I get money from my grandma or something in Costa Rica. She gives me $400. Then I'm like, yo, Gib, I got this, bro. Don't worry about it. You know, I see someone on the street that I knew. Hey man, here, take this 20. I don't need it. But I don't know how well that applies to people once they get astronomical sums of money that are hard to...
That's when you got something for free. I'm saying, what if you built a business and you built an empire and you got $1 million in your bank account now? It's very different.
Because it's you're thinking, that's mine. I worked for it. Even though, there's of course the extraction of surplus value.
This is why certain people I love, like Warren Buffett, is going to donate 99% of his wealth when he dies. He's still going to have, at least $2 billion.
But I think about the two. I'm thinking, all right, that's great. That's more money that I could ever donate in my life. But he's gonna be dead. What else is he gonna need for it? He's not gonna need it for anything. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a cop out.
His family's still gonna have $2 billion.
Exactly.
I can tell he has fought with that question, and he has came through it and has told himself he's already written his will. That's what's gonna happen.
And then you got Bill Gates on the opposite side of the spectrum, who owns the most private property in America ever.
Well, Bill Gates has a different philosophy where he's trying to build a non-profit that can do really expensive, long, arduous tasks like cure certain diseases. Mm-hmm. So he wants to build a money machine that can fund this.
Because I think about that too. I feel like I get too stuck in the way of, all right, I need to keep making money so eventually I can help out people. Before I know it, I'm dead and I haven't helped out anyone.
There you go. And that's something you have to wrestle with. There has to be a point where you stop, okay, now I help out people.
So it's who was it, Carnegie or Vanderbilt who had the philosophy spend the first 30 years of your life learning as much as you can, the next 30 making as much money as you can, the final 30 giving as much away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's why? If you have a steady income stream, why don't you just start giving now? Why do you have to hoard it like a dragon before you decide to start giving away?
Yeah.
That's what the Muslims do. They have to give out, by law, some part of their income to the poor.
It's the tithes.
Yeah.
Tithes, yeah.
Yeah, but most religions have some form of tithes. It's weird. It's weird what morality rules people choose from the Bible that they like. Because my thinking is people choose their own morality, and people say, "Oh no, us Christians, it was given by God." It's well, there's a bunch of stuff in the Old Testament you don't follow. Wearing mixed fabrics, eating shrimp, eating pork, all that stuff. Everyone's like, "Oh well, Jesus just said you have to love people."
Do you know why Jews grow out their hair curly?
Why?
Because back in the ye old days, they would leave the corners of their farming lots to the poor, for the poor to harvest. Mm-hmm. So them doing this is them leaving the corners.
There was I forgot the name for it, but in Esther, that's how the whole book of Esther gets started, because she was that poor person that was gleaning from I forgot what it was called, but like you were saying, how you have to face yourself with those questions before you do get tested. There's an illustration that a lot of my professors used, because I went to a Christian university for college, and the illustration they gave was a tea bag and hot water, and you don't know exactly what's in the tea bag. You can smell it, you can kind of get a sense of what it's going to be, what it will look like. You don't know exactly what it's going to be until you steep it. And I guess because I got to go in a minute, something I would say.
Damn.
I know. Something I would say for anyone listening to this is to go through a process of thought that answers the most basic questions that will lead to the most profound conclusions. I was struggling a lot last year with who I was, because I was living alone on my own for a while, for the first time, and the only person I was able to talk to was myself. And the logic that I followed was, I am a person, my name is Joshua, I perceive life, I have life, I experience life, I express life, I crave meaning, I recognize order, and I recognize disorder. I recognize the relationship between the two. That relationship creates a response from my person. Why do I respond differently than others do? Why do people respond differently to disease than other people do? And bringing a relationship between spiritual and physical, the individual's vitality physically and the maintenance of their health physically allows them to prevent them to develop a disease when it is prevented physically. And the development of yourself prior to the exposure of something malignant, something pathogenic, is the determination of your response. So, to prevent yourself from becoming who you don't want to be, face yourself with those problems now. Everybody have a good night.
All right, have a good.
Love yourself. You need to hate what you need to hate, but you need to hate it because it's hurting what you love. And you need to wield these two things, like they're two fists. But always love what happens to you. Do things that you love. Seek out what you love. Learn to love. And if you fill your life with things you love, one day you'll turn around and look at your life, and you'll love yourself, and you'll love how it went, and then you can die.
Amen. Amen.
My mom was a hardcore atheist, and so was my brother. You gotta look at it too, because my parents were divorced. So my mom was a hardcore atheist, so was my brother, so was my stepdad. And they honestly didn't teach me much. I think that's kind of a big thing. I think that's why I'm like this. I think I was left to my own devices. And this is just what you get out of the internet and a couple books.
Okay.
And my own life experiences. And me sitting there thinking about it and churning it through. But really, like, my mom was just an atheist, so I felt like from that point on, I was just shut out. Actually, I got more from the little snippets of Catholicism from my grandmas, both my grandmas. And like my Guatemalan grandma, even though she's Guatemalan, she was raised by a Cuban woman, and she she had like some Santeria stuff about her. She was really superstitious. She carried her saints around. As a young kid, I never got it. If everyone ever gone to my house, in the closet, there's San Lazaro, and they're like, "Well, you got Jesus in your closet." I have San Lazaro. I don't know, he's there, but I always felt like I just can't remove him, cause then we're fucked. Like, he's there. He's been there for like 30 years, dog. Like, I can't just throw him out.
Yeah.
Even though I don't believe in it, there's just something about it. Like, I gave a meaning, essentially. Yeah, my dad also kind of has the same thing as me. There are things my dad talks about in life that don't make any sense, but he gives it like this big destined meaning. For example, my dad thought, when he was a kid, he climbed up a tree. When he climbed up a tree into a nest, and when he on the nest, there were some eggs. He touched one of the eggs, he picked it up, looked at it, and he put it down. And this was a tree in his backyard, right? Eventually, those birds hatched. And one bird, he doesn't even know if it's the bird from the egg he touched, one bird was all fucked up. It didn't last that long. It had like it was like a deformed leg or something like that, and it was like it couldn't move. It was just like squatted over, huffing and puffing. And forever, he thought he cursed that bird and that he would have been cursed for life. To me, I think that's crazy, but I get where he's coming from. He gave meaning to something. I think it's negative things. My dad has a big victim complex, so I feel like this is a representation of the victim complex. But he does give meaning to just random shit, which is kind of what I do. I just feel like I do it in a way to where I try not to destroy my own life with my own beliefs, while he did it in a way where he was trying to prove that these beliefs are legit, and that's why his life is destroyed. Where this is intangible, where things will happen. You can't control what happens. But I do think you have to rationalize things in a way. Like, okay, weird things can happen to an animal, but they don't sit there and be like, the animal doesn't consciously think about, wow, a lion ate my kid because I left it. This means I'm cursed and I'm never gonna have kids again. No, the zebra just keeps going or whatever. Like, it would keep doing what it's doing. So I do think it's a conscious choice. But there's also an aspect to it that feels intangible, where like you feel like it all lines up. Yeah, I think only humans do it, because this is something we just invent. Because, animals got it down, all right? They got it simple. It's just life and death. Things happen because that's how the world is. They don't really think about it. We can think about it like things happen like because an entity, we make up this shit, like things happen because of the butterfly effect, because an entity cursed us, because a fucking saint didn't like us one day. We can think of all these external factors that can cause the way things happen, while animals just think this is just nature. This is just how the world works, and they just live it day by day, moment by moment. The fact that we can consciously rationalize things, like we have an internal dialogue. Now, if a cat had internal dialogue, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if they do, to the level of complexity that we do, but that would be what separates us. I have my own guidelines of good and evil, but it aligns with my my reason of existence and what I'm here for and everything. I think if you try to control people, like you're trying to take advantage of them, that's evil. If you're trying to lead people astray, that's evil. If you're trying to imprison someone, that can be evil. But it's just too complex of a thing to just be like, that's always evil, that's always good. there's too much nuance to it. And it's why, like, every single person's going to have their own idea, which is why I don't think there is a good and an evil. There's no rules, there's no testaments. Depends on your perspective on everything, right? Like, all the Germans thought Hitler was fucking great. Until he wasn't. All the Italians thought Mussolini was great. Until not. So, it's just, it's way too fucking gray for anything to be set in stone. Only to defend yourself, in my opinion. Only to defend yourself. There's a lot of nuance in that, but I'm gonna say yes with an asterisk.
What's the asterisk?
The asterisk is there's a fine line you walk before you're the aggressor and not the defender. You know, so yeah, that's one of those questions that's a toughie, because that's why I said yes with an asterisk. It's like, I'm thinking of it in terms of like the Cold War. Should we have invaded Russia at any point? They were up against us, right? Would that have been proactive? I still think that would have been the wrong thing, because you're just like choosing violence unless you have to. It's just it never works out for you. I do believe in not violence but proactive confrontation.
What would be that?
Proactive confrontation would mean there's something wrong going on, so you just go out and ask for it. Like, what the fuck's wrong? You know what I mean? Like, you see this in relationships. Your girlfriend's it seems like she has a problem with you. Just go out and ask her what's wrong. Don't play the little sit and wait game. Just, you want to know what's going on before shit bottles up and it blows up. If you're at a bar and someone seems to have a problem with you, before the guy starts screaming at you and might throw a fist at you, just ask him what's going on. What's your problem with me? You know what I mean? Just that would be better, in my opinion. I do think there's some people who have genuinely thought about it and genuinely believe in this. I guess that's the way you figure out yes or no on that question is how genuinely have they rationalized and thought about this. So, like, for example, someone like Kierkegaard, I fuck with that. But most people aren't Kierkegaard. So I kind of don't fuck with that. So Kierkegaard, the reason why he's really genuine is because he's a Christian, but he brought Christianity into existentialism, and he expanded upon it. I think that's a big thing. He drew more from it that he created from himself to justify it in his own words. I feel like if you want to follow Christianity, that's what you ought to do. You ought to take Christianity and expand upon it within yourself. And in my opinion, that's what I would perceive as genuine and crafted to you. But if you were just listening to whatever and just following like how it is, like it's a guidebook, I don't fuck with that. To expand upon it and craft it for yourself, yes. Yes, any religion.
Well, it also could be like an atheistic worldview, no?
Yeah, I think you can do that with that too. You just got to be careful not to fall in the holes. You know what I mean? The holes are like, you really want to make sure you're not, it's like you don't want to believe, you don't want to follow without you're guiding yourself. If you're going to follow down the Christian hole, don't just believe in some tenement or whatever just because you believe, just because that's how it works. I want you to question every single aspect of it, and I want you to see what's right about it. And even if you don't like one aspect of it, it's okay. You can expand upon that aspect, or you can even shape it for yourself. So atheistic, like, I don't want you to be an atheist and just hate Christians because you think they're stupid and dumb and blah, 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 blah. I want you to see the nuance of it. I want you to understand things. It's honestly, I want you to nitpick every little thing. I think a big thing is believing in absolutes. So, for example, if you think morality is real, then how come there's all these contradictions? It's like one or the other. It's real or it's not real. So if you think there's real, then how come there's all these contradictions in the Bible and all these contradictions of actions of people and all these contradictions in psychology? I think believing in absolutes, and you just take that to the extreme, is how I see philosophizing with hammers. Because I think the idea, like when Nietzsche does this, is that he's trying to establish the gray area of everything, which is kind of what nihilism is. And I think him proving that nothing is absolute, by taking everything to their extremes, is him proving nihilism in a way. I think nihilism sucks, but it was a two-handed sword. I think I would go back on the idea that just imagine your life, and do you really want your life to just be there's no meaning in the world, or do you want your life to be like, I will craft my own meaning and to do what I want. I want you to sit down and look at yourself honestly. And do you like the person you see or do you not? Look at the mirror. And I think when you go on that journey, you'll discover yourself. You'll discover what life is there for you. And then you won't even remember you were a nihilist. You know what I mean? You'll be like, that was a thing of the past. Now I'm me. Every single person needs to go through that. If you have a life and you're conscious, you have to go through that. That is one might see it as a plight. I think it's a beautiful thing. No, it's cyclical. You are going to fall into these things and come back out. Fall into these things and come back out. And every single time, you will craft yourself, your vision for your life and your path better. And I think you should always catch yourself, because you don't want to, maybe you were going on the right path, now you changed and now your path is wrong. I want you to be able to catch yourself. I want you to be able to have this internal regulator and to be able to catch yourself, I just want to I want to experience more things. I want to find true love, just to feel it. I want to climb another mountain. I'm addicted to climbing mountains. It's incredible. I want to talk to people. I love conversations, so I want to just talk. I want to learn the most interesting lives in the world. I want to make a book on the most interesting lives I've heard of in a bar conversation type thing. So, yeah, I think experiencing more. I'm always down for it. I crave it. I want to bool with the boys and do some crazy shit. I want to be reckless. And you always gotta remember, even if you fuck up, you fucked up doing something you love. And it's okay. Just learn to live with yourself and call it a day.
Alright, so pretty much the entire session was bullshit. So basically what you really gotta do is, so there's this thing called the Godhead. Basically it's asleep. It's not active, but everything's created by it. And if it ever wakes up, you'll be completely eliminated from the world. So essentially what you have to do is, you have to develop your ego so much that when you recognize that your life is completely meaningless, it doesn't even fucking matter to you because your ego is so big. And you'll be able to change the nothingness into whatever you want it to be. So, after that, there's other steps you could take, where essentially the end goal is to become the sleeping Godhead yourself. Now, granted, you will lose your agency, but you'll give birth to a whole new universe. That's essentially the end goal. That is called Amaranth. Now, there's another path to Godhead. So basically, there is 3 people. 2 events are being done. One is doing something to the other, but it's impossible to tell them apart until you give each one of them a name. Until you yourself name one good and evil. Until then, it's just nothing. And when you do that, you become God by deciding what is good and what is evil.
That's all, folks.
Yeah. Look up the Ruby Bridge incident.